Last week, Zhu Xiaochang, the head of China's central bank, announced in a jargon-filled technical interview that China would no longer be pegging its currency to the US dollar. The seemingly arcane shift could trigger a collapse in the US dollar, which, as economist Peter Schiff put it, will be the single largest event in human history. The fact is that 84% of the US workforce is in the service sector, meaning they do not actually make anything. In other words, the Americans do not make enough stuff to pay for the stuff they are getting from the rest of the world. The corporate propaganda media still cling to the lie that the US is the world's biggest economy and China is number 2. That is outright fiction. The Chinese, for example, produce 11 times more steel than the US, and in the last 3 years alone have produced more concrete than the US used during the entire 20th century. The Chinese have decided enough is enough and demand real payment for their goods, not so-called US dollars. The significance of the shift has been underlined by the double-digit collapse in the world trade in generally and the shutting of US ports. Chinese exports in generally fell by 11.2% year-on-year, while imports fell 80.8%. Most of this was relating to the US. The message was clear. The US was not going to be allowed anymore to pay for stuff with money printed out of thin air. This Chinese move is what prompted the US corporate government presidential spokesperson Barack Obama to ask Chinese elders and the Rothschild family for permission to devalue the US dollar, which was, as reported here last week, denied it. The failure to get permission to devalue the US dollars prompted Obama's handlers to call an unscheduled emergency summit meeting of ASEAN heads of state last week in California. In fact, the real meeting that took place in California was between General Jose Dunford, head of the U.S. military, and General Mulyani, chief of staff of the Indonesian Armed Forces. The purpose of this meeting was to discuss gold, loss of gold, according to U.S.-based Pentagon sources and Indonesian-based CIA sources. As a result of this meeting, the U.S. was given the right to finance itself by exporting gold to China from a gigantic Freeport McMoran mine in Papua. According to CIA source, the gold ore is turned into slurry and pumped straight into ships that take it to Hong Kong for refining. The amount is unknown, but apparently enough to keep the U.S. government functioning. Furthermore, at this meeting, the U.S. military was given permission to develop a massive new platinum and gold deposit and set up bases to Indonesian island near the South China Sea. The Indonesians will get a large piece of the action, plus protection in exchange for the cooperation, the sources said. The biggest story behind all of this is that the U.S. military has been building a global military alliance to make sure we do not end up with a one-China world. On February 11, before the meeting with the Indonesian Army Chief, General Dunford met with the heads of the Japanese and South Korean armed forces ostensibly to discuss North Korean missiles. The real point of the meeting was to ensure the Japanese and Korean armed forces aligned with the Russian, US, and European military alliance that was sealed when the Pope met with the Russian Orthodox Patriarch Kirill on February the 12th, White Dragon Society sources say. This alliance, in addition to keeping China in check, is aiming to straighten out the Middle East. On that front, Obama was instructed to tell the world that Saudi Arabia has nuclear weapons. The message being sent, according to Pentagon sources, was that it would be okay for the Russians to use nuclear weapons to attack Saudi Arabia. There is also a secret understanding that NATO will not defend Turkey if Russia attacks, the sources say. The Turks and the Saudis, along with their Nazi allies in the Ukraine, have assembled an army over 1 million strong with up to 3,500 tanks, over 3,000 high-performance aircraft, and advanced missile systems. They also have at least 200 nuclear weapons supplied by Israel or stolen from NATO arsenals in Turkey. This army has been assembled to create an Islamic superstate or caliphate. This state is intended to include Northern Africa, the Middle East, and large parts of Central Asia. The floods of Muslim refugees being poured into Europe are almost certainly being used as pressure to get European acquiescence to this plan. However, the Turkish and Saudi military brass have told their U.S. counterparts they will overthrow their political leaders if they try to order them to use this vast army in a suicidal move against the U.S. or Russian military alliance. Saudi Arabia and Turkey are also feeling a financial pinch respectively from drops in oil prices and drops in trade and tourism. This pinch forces Saudi Arabia to cancel $4 billion worth of military aid to Lebanon, Pentagon sources say. The loser in this case were, the Pentagon sources said, the Jewish mafia behind the French arms companies. In addition, the Iranian ally Hezbollah is being armed by Russia, and the sources say may act as a proxy for Russia to nuke Israel. Furthermore, the Italians have started probing Turkey's President Recep Erdogan's son Bilal for money laundering. The message being sent to Turkish leadership is that they are not above the law. Some sort of Muslim federation will arise when the dust settles, and it will arise through negotiations, not war, White Dragon Society sources say. Meanwhile, the Pope's airplane was lasered by a drug cartel operative in Mexico last week to signal their displeasure at his efforts to cut off drug money. There also appears to be some serious X-Files type of stuff going on in relation to all of this. Recall that Vatican was hit by lightning during the liberation that ended up in selection of Pope Francis. Then, Mecca and Saudi Arabia was hit by lightning leading to over 100 deaths last September. Following that, a Russian research vessel showed up in Jeddah, the Saudi port close to Mecca. The Socha Fail news sites, run by U.S. Naval Intelligence, wrote recently the vessel was there to transport some sort of secret weapon uncovered in Mecca and transported to Antarctica. This news site was described by British MI6 intelligence sources as being anywhere from 90% to 10% true, with this information mixed in. However, what brings our attention to this article at this time is the fact that Russian Orthodox Patriarch Kirill last week went to Antarctica to meet the Russian ship. Pentagon sources say Kirill went to Antarctica to extend Russian claims like papal bulls that give Spain much of the New World. However, there's almost certainly more to this than a simple claim on frozen land.